Fredericks Radio Network and the John Fredericks Radio app. Thanks for being with us today. I am your Godzilla of the Truth in America. Please turn your phone down, guys. Great to have you with us. Trucking the truth every day. Your oracle of the deplorables. We're live in the 603. Got a great panel today. We're going to be here all week. We're at AJ Letizio's Enterprises, and we want to thank AJ for setting us up here. Everything going fine. Also with us is Bruce Benton. He is a selectman. That's like a councilman from Windham. Fred Doucette is with us, House of Representatives member in New Hampshire, Republican. Matt Mowers with us. He used to be a political operative and consultant. Now Matt is running for Congress in District 1. So he's a candidate, Republican for that. And also with us running for the Republican nomination for U.S. Senate in New Hampshire, Corky Messner is with us too. Great to have you, Corky, as well.
Thank you so much for having me on today.
And I did call you last evening, by the way. I hope you got my message for that. So thanks for that, Corky here. And look, guys, we also have, who's calling in? Stephen Stepanek.
Stepanek, yeah. Right?
Stepanek should be calling in a couple minutes. And I am. He's on with us now. He's on with us now. Okay, also, Steve Stepanek, are you on with us, Steve?
Yes,
Steve,
I am.
Okay, we got Steve on. Steve. Yep, Steve, former, a former and a current. Steve also served in the House of Representatives in New Hampshire, and Steve is now the chairman of the New Hampshire Republican Party. And of course, Fred Doucette with us is co-chair of the Trump campaign in New Hampshire. Steve, great to have you with us. We just had your governor on. He's pretty fired up. Tell us the state of affairs very quickly for Republicans in New Hampshire, Steve.
Well, the level of enthusiasm that we're seeing, I haven't seen. I think it's actually higher than it was in 2016. I see everywhere I go what I call closet Trump supporters that are fired up and ready to come out of the closet for the president. And we're working really hard to encourage that. I will tell you that, after I took over a year ago as state party chairman, first thing I did is had the RNC run the numbers between 16 and 18, and we had 115,000 Trump supporters and Republicans who voted in 16 and didn't vote in 18. And we're in the process of, and we have been since last March, us as well as working closely with the Trump victory team have been reaching out in a major grassroots effort to re-engage these people. And I'm here to say that we're doing a phenomenal job. We're also reaching out to blue-collar working, hard-working New Hampshire citizens who are live in the state, who are entitled to vote but not registered to vote.
All right, so you're working on voter registration, Steve. I'm going to get some of our panel involved here. We got some candidates running for office. 100. Let's get to Matt Mowers, running for Congress, District 1. Matt, former, I know you were involved with the Trump campaign, a lot of campaigns. Now you're running for Congress. 115,000 people voted for Trump in New Hampshire 2016, didn't show up in 2018. Interpret that for us. How does that translate into a victory in 2020, Matt?
Well, first of all, Steve's doing a great job as chairman. I mean, I think it really speaks volumes that we actually have a Trump supporter as the chairman of the state party here this year, and that's going to make a big difference. So thanks, Chairman, for everything you're doing.
Matt, I'm neutral until 8 o'clock on Tuesday.
I understand. Well,
I mean, Matt, you've spent a lot of time working on campaigns. 115,000 vote differential, 1816 in the 603. If those people showed up, could you win your race?
Yeah, we could. Because look, the president won my district 4 years ago.
Right.
And my opponent, Chris Pappas, actually is the first Democrat in the country from a Trump district to support impeachment.
Right.
First one.
Right.
And so what that tells me is that we have a member of Congress who's at total odds with our president, and he's at odds with the voters of this district. And what we have to do is go to every community every town, and inspire them to vote. And I think we have to tell them what's on the line. What's on the line if the president doesn't get reelected? And I think we saw at the State of the Union Tuesday night what's on the line if we don't take back Congress. Because if we don't take back Congress, Nancy Pelosi is going to be tearing up State of the Union after State of the Union for the next 4 years, and we're going to get nothing done. We're going to have endless hearings. We're going to waste millions of taxpayer dollars on hearings and impeachment time and time again. And my opponent, Chris Pappas, has been part and parcel of that with Nancy Pelosi and the AOC gang. And so I think we need to actually have someone go down to Washington, D.C., who's going to work with our president on the things that matter.
How many other candidates are so far in your nomination race?
So we got 2 other guys there, all great guys, but I'm pretty confident we're gonna be successful here really soon.
And are you the only millennial in the race?
Yes. And look, I think that's an important piece, right? I'm sick and tired of my generation being defined by the AOCs, and my opponent, Chris Pappas, is young as well, being defined by those guys instead of people like me who actually understand that free markets work, that democracy works, and that we should actually incentivize people to live out their dreams the way they see fit, not some bureaucrats down in Washington, D.C. telling them what to do.
I love it. All right, I'm going to get to Corky Messner. Now, Corky, we just met, right? First time we met. I've heard a lot about you from some of my friends of mine. Now, we spent here in the John Fredericks Radio Network a year trying to convince Corey Lewandowski to run for Senate, and it failed, right? So he's not going to run, although I think he got really, really close. So now it's wide open. I've met the other candidates in the race. You just got in. Why Corky Messner? Why are you in this race?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I bring a lifetime of experience in the military as a veteran and as a businessman. I started a business. I grew a business. I know how to create jobs and solve problems. I get things done. And I'll do that as a U.S. Senator and fight for the people of New Hampshire.
Okay, so one of the big things that Corey Lewandowski said is in order to go against Jeanne Shaheen, you're going to have to raise millions of dollars. And he was not kind to the other candidates when he saw their fundraising come out, said they really hadn't raised enough money. I mean, one guy that raised, he said he raised enough money to run for supervisor of one of the counties
dog
or something.
catcher.
Dog catcher. So Lewandowski, not particularly kind of that. How are you going to raise the kind of money, Corky, that you're going to have to raise in order to compete with Shaheen?
Yeah, couple ways. First of all, I have right now over $1 million cash on hand, both from raising money and putting some of my own money in. And fundraising is a challenge, and I am very confident that I will have the money to beat Jeanne Shaheen, both through fundraising and through some of my own money. I've lived the American dream. I grew up as a blue-collar kid, went to West Point, graduated from West Point, started a business, and turned it into a national business. And I want to fight to preserve the American dream for everybody in New Hampshire.
Now, I talked to one of your opponents, can't say who, off the record the other day when I was checking you out, and he said, Corky Messner is a carpetbagger. He's not from New Hampshire. How do you respond to that?
My home has been here for 14 years, and I love New Hampshire, and I've been very involved in my community in Wolfboro. I help conserve the area around the lake I live on, Lake Wentworth in Wolfboro. It's called the Wentworth Watershed Association. I am very connected to New Hampshire. I am involved in New Hampshire. I invest in New Hampshire. I help people in New Hampshire. I help veterans in New Hampshire. Homeland Heroes I'm involved with and helping them. So I'm very connected with New Hampshire. And I might say, I think it's about 65% of Granite Staters were not born here. Most people are from somewhere else. And I'm not a carpetbagger. I love New Hampshire. And as I tell my sons, I have 2 sons who are currently at West Point. And when I pass, my ashes will be on the shores of Lake Wentworth.
Very nice. Okay, let's get to House Representative Member Fred Doucette. So, Fred, what do you think of this whole thing?
Oh, just to that point, and Corky's correct in that about 65% of us, myself included, vis-a-vis the Boston accent, are transplants to the state of New Hampshire. And the big difference is we may not have been born within the state boundaries. But we made a conscious decision to make New Hampshire our home. I made a conscious decision when I got out of the Navy that I was going to reside in Salem, New Hampshire. I was going to get married, raise my children, put them through the school system. And to Corky's defense, he's no Mitt Romney, he's no Scott Brown. You know, he's no, seriously. The carpet bagger label is the only thing they can do to swing it at a candidate that supports this president's agenda.
I forgot about Scott Brown. Didn't he come to New Hampshire? And wasn't he like senator of Massachusetts and then came to New Hampshire?
Oh, it's convenient. One of those parachute candidates.
Yeah, he lost to Elizabeth Warren,
right,
and then came here 2 years later to run. I'm not a career politician. I'm an outsider. I'm a successful businessman.
Right.
And Washington, D.C. needs more successful people to go there and support President Trump to drain the swamp.
So John, you know, my opponent is from New Hampshire, but he sure as hell doesn't vote like it. Right, he's voting like some San Francisco socialist right now, and so I think it's really important that we send people to Washington D.C. who are going to represent New Hampshire, even if they weren't blessed enough to be born here.
I like that. Let's get back to your chairman. I'm a big fan of Steve Stephanie because he came on my show. Remember that, Steve? Was like you're like the first elected official in the country to back Trump. You came on like 2 days after he went down the escalator, and that's where we got to know each other. But I love the fact that you're now running the Republican Party in New Hampshire, and you're a successful businessman. You're trying to get this 150,000 out, voters out. Tell me about your voter registration. How's that going, and where's it going?
Well, again, in New Hampshire, we don't. Unlike other states, we don't do voter registration. We have same-day registration here, and only an individual can go to the clerk's office and register to vote. We can't do that for them. However, what we are doing is reaching out and contacting people about getting involved and why they need to get involved. And it's very, very important that we reach out, and we've been doing that. And you know, I made my case to the RNC back in March of actually February of last year, right after I got elected. I said, listen, if we can win New Hampshire. We can win New Hampshire for the president. We can win New Hampshire and flip it back to being a red state. But we need help, and they have responded. They've had people on the ground since March working with us to reach out, to knock doors, to reach out to people, to get the Republican message out, to get the message out about what the president is doing for the country and for New Hampshire. And we're getting more and more people who are responding in a positive way, who are getting involved like I've never seen before. And that's the key, is getting to these voters and letting them know how important this election is and how important it is that we turn New Hampshire red right across the board. And you know, as I say, we're planning a giant retirement party for Gene Shaheen, Chris Pappas, and Andy Kuster.
Let's retire them all.
They're all going to retire come November 3rd, 2020.
It's a great line, Steve. Let's get back to Fred Doucette.
And to echo on what the chairman said, Chairman Stepanak's doing a great job, and proof positive that New Hampshire is on the map for this president. He takes this state very seriously and very personally. They literally, the staffing from Trump victory on the ground in March was the first staffing in the country.
Right, was here in New Hampshire
for this supposed state that
they got a bunch
matter.
of people here. He's coming for a second rally on Monday. But tell me about the voter registration. You guys were shaking your head. Tell me
it's against state law. So what we're doing now
what's against state law?
Active voter registration by campaigns. Can't do it like you can in other states.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what we do is we empower people, and what we're doing, like the chairman was saying, we're re-engaging people that may have had a little bit of malaise during the last cycle and are very, very energized at this point and wanting to get engaged and are engaging both from our base, our grassroots base, the deplorables, but we're seeing substantial crossover from the undeclared / independents in the state, even Democrats showing up at events that we had an event with the Second Lady of the United States last night, and Karen Pence, and there were Democrats in that room that were engaged by her speech. So people are getting the message that this president's agenda, this president's successes matter, and these people are reaching out to us in great numbers to get re-engaged in helping this president, knocking doors, ringing phones, showing up, waving a sign, telling a neighbor to show up to vote, make sure you show up this time. So I have a great faith that we're going to have astronomically better numbers this time around, just because of the successes that we've seen and the static that the socialists have put this president through since before day one.
Yeah, I've been having
Corky Messner.
Yes, I've been having town halls all over the state.
Yep.
And meeting the Granite Staters. The intensity that I'm seeing and feeling is at fever pitch.
Really?
And unbelievable. And I had the opportunity to speak with some firefighters in Rye, New Hampshire, who are Democrats, and they are tired of the Democrats moving to socialism. They are open-minded to come to the Republican Party and vote for President Trump and get rid of Jeanne Shaheen. It is everywhere I go, people are very, very engaged. They want to help, they want to support, and they want to re-elect Trump. And they want to retire all those people Steve mentioned.
Well, that's going to be a lot of fun. I got a couple of texts here I got to read. One specifically for Corky Messner, and this is from Houston, who was driving a truck and couldn't call in, so he had to go via text. And he said, this is from truck driver Leon from Houston, Texas to Corky. It's not enough to say I'm a veteran and I'm a businessman. Where's the fire? Where's the beef? Where's the support for Trump?
Oh, I am a huge Trump supporter, and in every way. I have been supporting Trump since before he was elected. Yeah, and his policies are working. I see it working. I've seen it working in the business community. I've been talking to many of my business colleagues, some of whom are coming over to support Trump. I have a friend here in Hanover, New Hampshire, a successful businessman who's retired here, who did not vote for Trump in 2016. He's coming over to vote for Trump based on my discussions with him. So I'm a full supporter of Trump. His policies are working. The impeachment was a sham. I think what Mitt Romney did this week was wrong.
Oh, the rat weasel.
Snake.
Romney, the snake rat weasel.
And I disagree with his logic. I mean, if you think about what he said on the floor of the Senate,
It's baloney.
Exactly.
He's such a phony. You know, that's all about so the New York Times can write nice articles about him, and then he can go skiing in Aspen with his big donor Goldman Sachs outsourced jobs, slave labor buddies, and say, look, I voted my conscience. Guy's full of crap.
Well, and here's the thing about it. When, he acknowledged there was a conflict of interest by Joe Biden.
Right.
He acknowledged that
Right.
Hunter Biden's activities were
Right.
unsavory. Mitt Romney's a sophisticated businessman. There doesn't have to be a crime for there to be corruption.
Right.
And in addition, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, I think you have to investigate to determine if there's a crime.
I think so. Let's go to Mowers.
Yeah, so just to add to what Corky was saying, I worked in the State Department for over 2 years under this president.
I'm sorry.
And it was a tough place to work, but it was a great guy to work for. And he's not only having success in the economy, but he's having success in foreign policy. I've traveled around the world, almost 200,000 miles in that job, and the number of leaders who said, congratulations, you finally have a leader sticking up for your country. It was amazing.
Yeah, big time.
Huge difference. And so, remember, instead of sending a bunch of planes full of cash to a bunch of thugs in Tehran, this is the president that took out the head of their militia. Instead of just letting even our allies get a free ride off the U.S., he asked them to step up to the plate and pay more for their own security, and now they are. So, this president's getting a ton of results, not just here at home, but around the world. We're immensely proud of him, and I think we're seeing that energy on the ground. And, I was on the ground with Fred and Bruce and all these folks in New Hampshire in 2016, and, I think the biggest difference is how unified we all are in New Hampshire behind this president. He's going to win this year.
All right, we're going to give Fred Doucette the final word. I've only got a minute.
All right,
Go ahead, Fred.
Just to the point that the listener texted in about
Leon, my
Leon.
truck driver in Houston. By the
Leon.
way, Leon, go Houston Astros. There was no cheating. It's a hoax. It was a perfect World Series, Leon. It was a perfect season, just like Trump's perfect phone call. It was perfect, and it's the Yankees who are behind the whole thing, who planted it because they're pissed off because we beat them 3 times in a row. If you trace this back, Leon, it's the Yankees who are behind this whole scandal. I guarantee it. It's the Yankees. Who, by the way, when you talk about cheating in baseball, there's no salary cap. So the Yankees go out and spend $350 million and take our pitcher, and now you're going to penalize the Astros because they banged on a garbage can. Give me a break.
John,
Go ahead, Fred.
I thought you were going to lose New Hampshire until you started kicking the Yankees. Now you're back, John. You're good. You're good.
back on the team.
I hate the Yankees.
To that point, there.
They're the cheaters. $350 million. There's no salary cap. They spend whatever they want.
How do you not win every year? But
Anyway, go ahead. You got the final word. I got to go.
nonetheless, that the point was brought up about Cookie and support of Trump and fire on the belly. I can attest to the fact of the 3 candidates that are running for Senate that in the primary, this is the only man who has not spoken up against this president, period. That's a fact.
Well, one of your
this
guys,
man supports.
the Speaker of the House, I know is your buddy, O'Brien, nice guy, but this guy, I remember the campaign. I was there. This guy was like one of the most vicious never-Trumpers there were. Now he's running for Senate. I know he's your buddy, but I would vote for him.
all of a sudden he's on that bandwagon.
I mean, give me,
right?
come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. This is the guy who's going to get the job done for New Hampshire, period, end
Messner?
quote. Yes,
All right,
sir.
there you go. That's the final word. Fred Doucette weighs in on everything. He's back in Negron. He's back in Messner. He's the kingmaker, right? Steve Stepanek. Steve, I got to go. Steve, you have to stay neutral. You can't say anything. You're the chairman of the Republican Party. You're doing a good job in New Hampshire. We got to go.